Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Liam's Hockey, brought to you by Hosie and Brown Automotive and Ad Seal Services. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being on board as per usual here for our show. And we've got a brand new sponsor. Not only have we got Shoeless Joe's, but now we have Red E-Bins. And I'll be talking about them in just a few minutes' time. I'll tell you, people must be listening because I keep getting more and more sponsors. I guess if you want the definitive hockey talk, this is the place to come. So happy to put it out there for you. So look at again, thanks to the sponsors, Hosie and Brown and Ad Seal Services, the number one water treatment, water protection place in Eastern Canada. It's very happy to have Mark on board, and of course Rod Brown, Hosie and Brown, my dear friend, has been a stalwart here as the title sponsor since the start of Liam's Hockey. So Timmy Stu took a pretty good rip at him. Look, he missed a couple games. Obviously, he was a little bit injured to miss 2 hockey games. Played last night, looked awesome out there. Despite the loss, he played awesome for the Ottawa Senators in their loss to the Winnipeg Jets. But, I took him to task, and including with the photo in my thumbnail, as it's called. And I think that at the end of the day, the benchmark on him going forward will be how he acts going forward himself. The next few times he's tugged or pulled or an attack is stymied and he goes down if he's deemed to have sold it. I think the refs are on it. Whether Brendan Gallagher was right or wrong, whether Tim has embellished in the past or not, he's been called for penalties. He did bounce right back up and play the power play for Ottawa. As I said in last Liam's Hockey, it wasn't a good look. Having said that, then he went on to miss 2 games. So did adrenaline carry it through? You'd have to think that's probably the case. He was obviously a little bit banged up. Certainly didn't look like he was favoring it at all last night. So it was by no means a critical knee-on-knee injury that we've seen some in the past that have been devastating to one or sometimes both guys, but usually it's the hittee, not the hitter, that's taken the worst of it. And in this case here, obviously Suzuki was not hurt at all on the play, and Timmy Boy had no trouble finishing the game, and then missed 2. So give credit where it's due to him, to obviously maybe just having adrenaline carry him through, and then the injury was definitely something that kept him out of not 1 but 2 hockey games. So move forward. He took the high road when he was interviewed about it in his first game, preceding that first game yesterday against Winnipeg. So kudos to him for that. As he did allude, Nick Suzuki did apologize to him at the face-off circle. So there was no intent from Nick. In the brief time I've seen him with the Canadians, and the little bit I did see him in Junior A, never has struck me as that type of player. And there's no doubt Stutzla rolls in head first into a lot of situations. There's going to be a lot of contact in his future. Some good, some bad, some illegal, some otherwise. And I think if you're a fan of the guy, if you're a fan of the Ottawa Senators, which means you're a fan of him, and even if you're not a fan of the Senators, you should be a fan of this guy. I think his talent alone, his burgeoning talent, and the excitement level with which he plays. If you look at last night, how he was involved in so many plays physically, and he's such an exciting puck carrier. Look, he's a train wreck in his own end. There's no doubt about that. He dwarfs everybody else on the team, especially every forward in the plus-minus. And as much as that number is by no means the be-all to end-all in terms of judging a player, it is a reflection over the course of a season and in the time period that you play. And I think it reflects on he's got a lot of work to do in his own end of the ice yet. There's no doubt about it. But excitement level times 10. And I will say that I may have been a little harsh on him in my last show, as unbeknownst at that time, he was hurt enough to miss 2 hockey games. So I'll give him credit for that, no doubt about it. And he took the high road, so he deserves credit for that as well. So that's very stand-up of him. See what I did there? Stand up, Timmy. Stand up. And things will work out fine. And hopefully he can get through. Hey, look, he's not the first guy. He's not even the first guy this year, as I mentioned last show. Other players have been tagged for embellishment, and it will be an ongoing thing. And there'll be others in the future that will be tagged as well. I don't think he needs to do it. And maybe a little bit of the European in him, the soccer player. That's mostly when it came into the NHL on a larger scale. It's always existed going back to the 70s, as I said last show, courtesy of Bill Barber, who was really the first definitive guy to go off the high board on the ice. So, and a hell of a player in his own right. So there you go. So anyway, that's Timmy Boy. So we'll see how they finish out the season. They're obviously long eliminated here from the playoffs, like so many other teams now, especially in the Eastern Conference. Oh my goodness. Talk about a tale of the have and the have-nots. That top 8 has been solidified, it seems like, since Christmas, really. And I know Detroit fell off then, and some other teams statistically were in the hunt, but let's be honest, they really weren't. I think that Senator team, just to stay on that theme for a while, they are, the fans anyway, and the media, lamenting the fact that they've had star players hurt all year. Boy, take a number. I mean, it's pretty rare that you roll through any season without some key guys getting hurt. They have had an inordinate number of injuries. I don't think they've had as many as, say, Montreal, or lost as many man games to injury or COVID has Montreal, but they're right there. Probably, if not right with them, then very close. And some others obviously have been hurt very badly as well. But Ottawa has taken a severe pounding on the injury front and the COVID front. So their start next year, much like my next topic here, ongoing until the start of the playoffs regarding the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll get there in a second. For the Leafs, it's all about the first round. Imperative, absolutely crucial. Time to get it done, get a series win, and then see what happens. But in Ottawa's case, it's all about next season, start of next season. They're going to miss the playoffs this year. Hopefully they'll have a bunch of guys healthy enough to go and play in the Worlds. It's a real solid B-class tourney. You can go over there, represent your country. I think it's in Finland this year. It's notwithstanding the proximity to the situation in Ukraine, it still could be a great experience for anybody that does go over. If you look at Connor Brown and Nick Paul, Mangiapane for Calgary, his resurgence when he went over last year, what he did for Team Canada, and I think he's pretty much carried that over, albeit with some tremendous help. That Calgary team are going to be a real bitch to get out in the best of 7, I'll tell you, by anybody this year. They look awesome. Edmonton looks great. All the playoffs, it's going to be arguably some of the best hockey I think we've seen in a number of years here, this first and second round. You have got some great teams that are going to get eliminated in this first round, and that's tough, but that's just the way she goes, man. So, in the case of Ottawa, they got to get off to a good start next year. It's absolutely imperative that they do, and that's their next real big measuring stick. They'll have Shabbat, they'll have Sanderson, they'll have Pinto. They should have Batherson and Formanton and Stutzla and Tkachuk, and they've just got a real solid nucleus there. Their goaltending will be a question mark until they get to that American Thanksgiving mark, and we'll see where they are, and we'll see how their goaltending looks, and we'll see what happens with Matt Murray and all the rest. But for Ottawa, it's all about the start next year. They've missed the playoffs for the 5th consecutive year. They've never done that since 1992. And can you imagine? I mean, Tampa's gone on to win Stanley Cups. They came in with Ottawa. Anaheim has won a Stanley Cup, beating out the Ottawa Senators, came in the next year. Florida Panthers, who have missed the playoffs forever and have done nothing forever, they're really, it seems like, poised to make some noise this year. But now they got to go get it done. But, I mean, they came in after Ottawa as well. And they look like they're ready to take their turn, as the analogy I always use is the double Ferris wheel, where you want to try and stay on that top rung, and have a shot back up as quick as you can. Like Carolina did going to the final in 2002 and winning the Cup in 2006. Like Anaheim did going to the final in 2003 and winning the Stanley Cup in 2007. I mean, the Chicago Blackhawks missed the playoffs from 1996 to 2009. And then they won 3 Stanley Cups in 6 seasons. Like, Detroit were horrible. Even with Stevie Y, they were horrible until they went on that run, and which extended over a period of time. They had the back-to-back Cup wins, and they threw in a couple more in there. But it just, these teams went to the bottom of the Ferris wheel, and then when they got up there, they stayed up there. And they stayed up there for a little while. And this is the challenge that these great teams are now facing, especially Tampa trying to three-peat, which hasn't been done since the Islanders, and whether Florida breaks through this year or somebody else. It's been a trophy that's been shared around quite a bit in the 2000s, right? I mean, if you look at 03 was New Jersey, 04 was Tampa, 06 was Carolina, 07 was Anaheim, 08 was Detroit, 2009 was Pittsburgh, 10 was Chicago, 11 was Boston, 12 was Los Angeles, 13 was Chicago. So before you repeated, in that run, you had a different Cup winner every year from 2003 to 2012. Different every year, with the lockout year in there, 2005. So, yeah, there's been, Pittsburgh repeated, Tampa's repeated. But, I mean, your St. Louis's and Washingtons are in there, too. So, it's tough as hell to win, and then tough as hell to stay there. So some teams are really trying to get up there and get a crack at it. In Ottawa's case, it's not about winning the Cup next year, but there's no reason, just simply by being able to dress a relatively healthy lineup for the season, that this team doesn't have a minimum 25-point improvement. Minimum. Maybe 30, and then who knows? Who knows, man? I mean, Norris looks like the real deal. Brady Tkachuk, I think, is one of the up-and-coming better captains in the NHL. The guy just drags that team. It's well-used expression this year. He brings the team into the fight every game, and he does, literally and figuratively. Got a great D-man in Shabbat that I think a lot of people would like to see him play a few less minutes. Maybe with Sanderson in the lineup, that could be achieved. Everybody's very anxious to see Jake. Pinto, they were robbed of him early on this season. I think an up-and-coming future star centerman potentially for them, and so many others, right? So Ottawa, that's their challenge. But Stützle, he's going to be a huge part of that. And if he can do it without diving and faking and embellishing, he'll be a much better player for it. And had to start off that way because I did ring him out pretty good there last show, and he did miss a couple of games. So you got to admit you're wrong. And I was wrong. He was actually hurt despite finishing the game. So I heard my good buddy Gord Wilson say it on the local radio here. He guests on the midday show there. I think he was on with Lloydie and CJ, Steve Lloyd and Chris Stevenson, and I believe he was on with them anyway. And he said He said that's the one that piqued my interest on it, and said, think about it, adrenaline. Yeah, he's right. I think we've all probably been on the ice at some point, taking a shot, and you've been able to finish before the pain really hits you, either post-game, that night, or whenever the alcohol wears off. So kudos to Timmy on that one. Toronto Maple Leafs. Only Leaf fans would take what Austin Matthews did, which is phenomenal what he's doing from a goal scoring right now. I mean, he's picked up the mantle from Ovi. He looks set to run with it, undoubtedly for X number of years, barring injury, and take a run at scoring a ton of goals and being the go-to sniper in the National Hockey League. But so not only is his 50-50 not official, because the NHL only recognizes it from the team's first 50 games to start the season. Then the second criteria, where guys like Cam Neely and Alex McGillney and Yeri Curry and one of Mario Lemieux's times, where they get mentioned, 50-50, is in their 50th game of the season. not the teams, but their own, and they've scored 50 goals or more. So either 50 games or less of their own that they've played. So Austin Matthews has played, at this point, 67 games. When he did it, it was 60, whatever it was, 63, 64, his own games. Like, he's not even fitting in the confines of his own 50 games. They just took a period of games where he scored 50 goals. In his case, I guess it was 51. And said, there, he did it. Yay! I mean, he did, but it's not even measured that way secondarily. Anyway, all that to say is that that's why, Leaf fans, it's almost a badge of honor to take that first series victory and pack it more into the cult fan base that you've become. And it's for reasons like that a lot of you, not all of you, I have many friends that are Leaf fans that I would consider to be very reasonable, astute, passionate, knowledgeable fans of the sport. But that's just a mockery of taking a cherished record such as it is, even though Wayne has destroyed it for all time. It's still a phenomenal accomplishment by Austin. Not only that, now he's a single-season Leaf holder. I love the footage of Rick Vive going to see him. I thought that was great. By the way, never a bad day when you can start off chatting with somebody who played in the league that you had a lot of respect for. And this morning I did just that. Speaking of the Toronto Maple Leafs, when I had occasion to talk on the phone with Wendell Clark. I'm trying to set up an evening with Wendell. It could be in Brockville for reasons I'll explain maybe in the next week or two. But if not Brockville, we'll do it here in Ottawa. We had a night with Wendell at Liam Maguire's a number of years ago. Quite a few years ago, in fact. It was 2007. My God. I can't believe it, but it was 15 years ago. I just thought about that now. It was 2007. But we're going to get Wendell. We're going to try and get Wendell. I talked to Dougie Gilmore. We're going to try and get Dougie. Going to try and get a night with, check this one out, Chris Nyland and Terry O'Reilly. Same venue. Like how much fun would that be? Come on. With me hosting, it would be spectacular. So we've got some things in the works there we're going to try and do this summer for hockey fans. If the Leafs do advance, we may try and have Wendell come down during the second round and do something on a night, turn into a great big Leaf playoff night and have Wendell there attending. As I said, venue to be determined. But I was talking to Wendell today, and man, he had a fantastic release. And Austin Matthews is maybe even better than Wendell. Certainly, I mean, Austin Matthews is a 50-goal scorer. Wendell never was, but boy, Wendell has stayed healthy there in the late 80s when he was really starting to cook. And, I mean, he was still a big-time threat scoring-wise in the early 90s, but I think his body had already taken quite a pounding from the size, and the fighting was a role, but just the way he played and the body checks he threw. And I had a real nice conversation with him this morning. It's always good to catch up with guys like him. And so speaking of the Leafs, so for Toronto, it's all about the first round, baby. And Austin can score. I mean, he looks like he's probably going to get to 60. And man, to do it in this day and age, you got to tip your cap to the guy. Tip your cap to the guy. And you take a rip at it now, and it's unfortunate. Much like Ovi, he had he's been screwed by COVID. He would have had probably 3 50-goal seasons right now. Ovi would have another, who knows what, 50, 60 goals probably over maybe not quite that many. Like Wayne missed games to the 95 lockout, and you could say the WHA in 78, 79, but at that time the NHL wasn't an 18-year-old league. Wayne was still 17, turning 18. He wouldn't even been eligible to play in the NHL, but I don't know, they could have made an exemption for him when he turned in January. I don't know. You could say, make the case he lost a season of the WHA, even though technically he didn't, but he certainly lost. He played 48 games in 94, 95. Now, his scoring exploits had slipped by then. But still, regardless, the numbers are what they are. Like, if Bobby Hull or Rocket Richard or Joe Malone in 1918, if that's a 70 or 80 game season, Joe Malone scores probably 100 goals. But, you know, you weren't playing that on man-made ice back in 1918. So there was only, I think, two rinks in Canada that had artificial ice at that time. I think one in Toronto and one in Vancouver. That was it. So anyway, I'll be talking about it back then in just a second. So that's it for the Sens and the Leafs, kind of my topic. I just want to throw a comment in. As a Hab fan, obviously, so thrilled with Cole Caulfield. I believe that's 29 points in 27 games under Marty St. Louis as the head coach, and he scored like 4 in the last 5 games. He could have had 2 or 3 against Toronto. The thing, he's getting the chances, and unlike earlier this season, before things really went downhill under Dominic Ducharme, and you could just see the discouragement, and then so much so that he got sent down to the American Hockey League. And can you imagine that now? He played in the A this year. It's hard to believe when you see him out there right now, but that has been a breath of fresh air for Montreal. There's no doubt about it. Play of him and Suzuki in particular, and the fact Carey Price is traveling. I know he's not playing tonight. Geez, I sure hope one of these times he can. They keep saying he's going to play before the end of the season. You're running out of real estate here. But that was pretty cool to see the picture of him and Suzuki and Caulfield at the Blue Jay game. I thought that was pretty cool. So good on that, and good on Cole. Keep it going, kid. That's exciting as hell. It definitely won't be in the finals for the Calder, but it's encouraging to check and see what will Austin Matthews do next year with 82 games. Again, notwithstanding injuries and everything, what will Cole Caulfield do next year with 82 games under Marty St. Louis? You got to think he's 40 all day, and maybe more. So I think we've got some excitement happening in both those camps, and the Leafs this year, they need to get it done, man. I don't care if it goes into double overtime, Game 7 against the Bruins, or if Tampa slips in, whichever. They better find a way to get that W, because otherwise, I don't know that you can stand pat on or off the ice with that roster. Okay. Hey, just want to tell you about our newest sponsor here, Red E Bin. Red, REDEBIN.ca. So these are the garbage bins. I love their saying here, take the guesswork out of garbage removal. Bingo! Love that. And it's they're bright red. They're getting in the business. They're coming in. There's lots of opportunity to be a fair-minded business person and come in with this type of operation. These are the bins that you typically see when people are doing house rentals or construction and all, and you see the bins all around the different spots of the city of Ottawa and beyond. And I believe this is a Canadian company. They can take this puppy coast to coast like buttered toast. So REDEBIN.ca for all your information. They've got the trailers, they've got the trucks, they've got the different sizes. They quote you a price. That is the price you pay. I saw that on their site as well, and I always think in this day and age, you know, the thing people hate the most is getting quotes and then taking whatever it is in, or having whatever the person come over, and then all of a sudden the quote turns out to be more because they've just seen it, and now it's got to be this, or plus this, and this. Their mantra, right on the site. They quote you that number, that's what you're paying for the Red E Bin. So check them out online. Brand new sponsor here at Liam's Hockey. We thank them for coming on board, and we'll have more to say about them in future shows. And it's just great. Just thrilled to have them. So they will bring the first this day in hockey to you today. I've got 2, and Shula's Joe's will do the next one. So this one is brought to you by ReadyBin.ca. And there's a bunch of stuff. As I said, we're at the time period where there's 15 or 20 items, it seems like, on every day, because you're hitting playoffs from the old days, which I'll touch on in just a second. Actually, right now is a playoff memory from 1980. So there's people watching this who were around in 1980. I know not all of you. That is quite a few years ago now, 42 years. But April 11th, 1980, Gordie Howe and Bobby Hull played their last game ever in the NHL. In the same game, they were both member of the Hartford Whalers in the NHL, playing Game 3 of a first-round best-of-5 against the Montreal Canadiens, which they lost 3 straight. And they lost this game in overtime, 4-3, on a goal scored by Yvon Lambert. Yvon Lambert scored some huge goals, man, for the Habs. Some huge goals. Anyway, I just thought that was fantastic that they played their last game together. I mean, Gordie's quite a bit older than Bobby. Gordie broke in 46-47, and Bobby broke in 57-58. And so that's quite a stretch. 12 seasons apart, 12 years, big gap. But such stalwarts of the 1960s, even though Gordie already was in the 50s. But they had such a rivalry, and you had Beliveau, and you had guys like Dave Keon really coming on, and you had the Kraut line and the Uke line in Boston, and you had Andy Bathgate tearing up with the Rangers just on the cusp of Jean Rattel and Jean Rattel and Rod Gilbert joining the New York Rangers, and along came Vic Hadfield. And all these guys were there at that time. You had Howe in Detroit, Delvecchio, Mahovlich was still with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Frank, his brother Pete, hadn't played in the NHL yet, but he was drafted second overall in '63. It was such a great time in terms of the names that were there. And Bobby Hull and Gordie Howe were such an unbelievable part of it. And to think how things went for them post the teams that they are most synonymous with, the Detroit Red Wings and the Chicago Blackhawks. And here they were all these years later on today's date, April 11th, 1980, playing their last game ever in the NHL. 4-3 loss to the Habs. And I just think that's kind of cool. And of course, we lost Gordie 6 years ago this June, and the NHL still has not recognized him. That's borderline treasonous. It's just so sad. And Bobby is still with us. He's had some health issues, but just one of the greatest of all time, and a forerunner of the slap shot, and a forerunner of the curve stick, and so many other parts of his game were so historic in the league. And I just think it's just fantastic that him and Gordie share that. So that memory brought to you by readybin.ca. This next one, where we get ready here, let's go for, because this has got a local flavor, this story. So let's bring in some Dunrobin whiskey there. The only distillery in the city of Ottawa. I gotta be careful, because these last shots have been pouring. Whoops. Yeah, I did it again. It's another double. What are you gonna do? Let's just put this right here in case I need it later. So, this brought to you by Shoeless Joe's, who have been on board with us here now for a few weeks as they get set to open their new location at 4444 Innes Road in Orleans. And I've got some news to report to you. In contact with the intrepid partner, Mr. Jeff Underhill, and he tells me that Claude Julien, Ron Tugnut, and Jason York are all scheduled now to appear on opening night. So watch for the announcements, including on this show, as we give more details, we get closer to it, as to when Shoeless Joe's will actually be opening up for business. They will be a fantastic operation there in Orleans. It'll be very, very similar to their excellent location in Kentville, as I've stated many times. It's very easy access right off of Innes Road. It's on the south-hand side. There's tons of parking. There will be lots of screens. The food and ambiance will be exceptional. The service will be outstanding. And for those that will be part of opening night, including yours truly, we are going to light it up large, and then that place will open for business. And I hope if you're out that way, or you don't mind a little drive down Innes Road, you'll take advantage of it and check it out. So thank you, Shoeless Joe's and Jeff. And because of you, we bring another This Day in Hockey. And on This Day in Hockey, one of people's favorite of all time, and many choices as the greatest ever. Speaking of Bobby Hull and Gordie Howe, they're in that discussion. Many also, too, and rightfully so, have Bobby Orr in that discussion. When he became the second defenseman in NHL history to record a hat trick in the playoffs. This was against the Montreal Canadiens in 1971 in that unbelievable first round quarterfinal action, a series which the Bruins ultimately lost in 7 games. They were overwhelming favorites. They finished 24 points ahead of the Habs in the standings. Habs started Ken Dryden. Everybody knows the story, but this game was Game 4, tied the series at 2. And every time the Bruins won a game, I know myself as a young boy, I was going, okay, this puppy's over. It's over. But the Habs, under Dryden, despite some crazy games, big multiple goal losses, they bounce back and get a win, you know. But Bobby got a hat trick on this day, April 11, 1971, and I remember it. It was a little more than a month before my 12th birthday, and it was... I'd watched Bobby at that point with memory of watching him from about the age of 9 or 10 and just marveled at him as a defenseman doing what he's doing. The reason it's got a local angle is the first defenseman in NHL history was an Ottawa native to score 3 goals in a playoff game. And he did so in the first game of the Stanley Cup Final in 1921. Between the Ottawa Senators and the Vancouver Millionaires in Vancouver, and his name was George Boucher. George Boucher was one of the Boucher brothers who played in the NHL. There were 4, which was a record that stood until the twins, Ron and Rich Sutter, joined the NHL and surpassed the 4 Bouchers, making 6 Sutters, 5 and 6 Sutters. So George Boucher, he actually started playing for the Senators in the National Hockey Association. And he was a forward. But he went back and played defense a few years later. He loved to control the game back there. He was tough. He was by far the toughest of the 4 Bouchers that played. By far. His nickname was Buck. Everybody called him Buck. George Buck Boucher. His dad, his family was a legend. There were 6 brothers in the family, and 4 of them played in the NHL. So this really was the Sutters 1920 style. And in 1921 in Vancouver, they won Game 1 of a best-of-5, 5-0, in what was then the largest crowd ever to see a hockey game, ever. 11,000 people. Only surpassed by Game 5 of that series in Vancouver, where Ottawa won 2-1. 2-1. They estimate the crowd at over 12,000 people. They turned 3,000 people away. And the guy who scored the cup-winning goal for the Ottawa Senators also got the cup winner in 1920. His name was Jack Dara. He worked for the dairy, the Ottawa Dairy. He had to get permission and a leave of absence to be able to join his NHL team, the Ottawa Senators, for the Stanley Cup Final in 1921. Because in those days, when you won the NHL, you didn't win the Stanley Cup. You had to go play other leagues across Canada. And they ended up in the PCHA, playing the PCHL winners, Vancouver Millionaires, in what Frank Patrick called it the greatest win. He was the losing coach and manager and owner. And he called it the greatest team he had ever seen. Was the Ottawa Senators in 1921. Now, I know a lot of great teams came after, but there had been some good ones in hockey at that time, and I thought it was heady praise indeed. So there you go, a tie-in from an Ottawa native that became the first defenseman to record a hat trick in the Stanley Cup playoffs that goes all the way up to Bobby Orr, who became the second on this date in 1971, followed by 10 more, right up to Andy Delmore in 2000 with the Philadelphia Flyers. Paul Reinhardt's on there, Doug Hallward. You guys know all the names, and it's just a great stop. So there you go. That's it. That's all. Time to say grace and blow this place. Thanks to the sponsors, very much appreciated. And here we go, boys. Let's toast the Boucher family and for all their accomplishments in hockey. Frank ended up retiring in the village of Kentville, about 12, 13 minutes south of me here. And he's a prince of a man. They all were. They're Hall of Famers. They're great players. They're Stanley Cup winners. and their names are dotted through the NHL record and guide and record book. George Buck Boucher. All the best, everybody. We'll catch you next time. G'day.